Okay. Okay, I'm gonna.
Tell me when you're
Renee, whatever.
Is that good? I need to put my hair up. I don't know what my hair tied.
Perfect. Okay.
So should I look at you?
Look at yes.
Look at me. Don't look at her. Okay. Are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me how you feel about the election coming up.
I'm nervous. I think the biggest feeling I have is just nerves. It feels like a lost situation to me. Both sides seem very controversial and very unfavorable to me and all my young friends. It doesn't seem like a candidate really fits my perspective and my thoughts.
What have you done in the past to be involved?
Last year I participated in a phone banking event which helped me connect with unregistered voters, and I was able to help them through the process of getting registered. And that helped me gain insight to how like so many people are just unfamiliar with the process, and I was really grateful to be able to connect with those people and help them. And that also made me more aware that it's a significant problem in even our community, and we need to help people get registered.
Describe to me when you registered to vote.
I registered to vote through my school. So there was an organization that came to my school, and it was a really easy process. Signed on an iPad really quickly. I got my little envelope in the mail, and I'm all registered now. And I'm grateful that it was such an easy process for me, and I hope it can be easy for everyone else as well.
What do you know about what this election means? Tell me about what you think this election means. And you can start by saying this election.
This election means a big pivotal point in our nation's history, I believe, because it's almost a fight between, to me it seems like it's like the lesser of two evils in my opinion, and it's choosing the one that's going to inflict less harm on not only America but people abroad. I think this election in particular has implications beyond America, most importantly, and that's what I'm feeling deeply. It's just the implications that are affecting people, especially in the Middle East now. And so it's our choice as Americans whether we choose a candidate who funds that, or it seems that right now that both candidates fund that, but it's choosing which ideology we're going to support in the future, and which decisions we make now are going to affect how that conflict is resolved, how those people survive, and how they live for hundreds of years from now.
Okay, stop for 1 second. I just want to double check one thing.
I turned 18 in October, so this is my first time voting in this upcoming election. And more than anything, I'm so excited. I feel like it's a right of Americans, and my parents have been telling me about voting since I was little. It just feels like this big moment, and I'm excited to vote. I'm excited to make my voice heard among millions of other Americans, and I think the young people, me included, are just excited to get our voice heard for the first time ever in this election.
And what are your hesitations or your other feelings besides excitement, and where do those come from?
I think my other feelings are, again, nerves, I think, because this is a big decision. Who I decide to be the president for the next 4 years is going to make decisions that affects my lives, but also lives, across the world who are being, in danger right now. So I feel it's a big decision on my part to determine who's our future leader will be, and that sets a precedent, and that the precedent is what I'm most worried about, because my decisions now will affect so many people going forward.
And what is happening in the world that's really preoccupied your thoughts?
So the ongoing war in the Middle East, the Israel-Palestine conflict has really occupied my mind. I try to stay in the know about what's going on, and just to hear some of the news that's coming out, some of the devastation and the atrocities and the loss of life that's going on there, it makes me sad. And what makes me more saddened is that to hear that some of the candidates in this election are funding what's going on there, and so that's why I'm sort of at a loss for words of which candidate to choose. Where do I go from here when it seems like there's no way out?
What have you seen that's upsetting to you?
I've seen the pictures through the media, and I think what's even more upsetting than the pictures is that we continue to fund this. Even when the pictures keep coming, it keeps getting worse. We continue to send more money to fund this conflict that's going on, that's causing so many people to lose their lives, so many women and children who, should not be included in the conflict. They continue to die, and what hurts me is that it doesn't seem like I have a good option to pick of someone who's willing to stop that. So that's why I'm conflicted.
What do you hear from your friends?
My friends they're the same thing as me. We're all talking about, on one side it's funding it more, on one side it's just completely ignoring them. So where do we go? There's no in between. I wish there was a third candidate. We were always talking about this. I wish there was a third candidate.
What kind of questions what brought you here today to talk to Lazala?
I just want to know more about where each candidate truly stands and their policies on the conflict, because the media they'll make you think one thing when something is actually happening the other way. So I just want to know truly, where do each candidate stand? How have they voted? How have they sent money? And I hope Lazala can help me make that clear.
Did you ever think about not voting?
This election particularly, because it's my first one, I'm excited to vote, right? The circumstances that have come upon us with it being a lose-lose situation have sometimes made me feel like my vote is insignificant, and that really sucks. But I've been ingrained since I was young to always vote no matter what, because you have to get your vote out there and make yourself heard.
And can you talk a little bit about how you felt when you've seen some of the images, especially during this month?
My heart just hurts. Living in America, I don't think we've ever had to go through something like that, and so it's hard to imagine. It truly is. When you see a picture, you can't fully empathize because you're not there, but I try to empathize with them, and I just feel so hopeless here in America that we're funding this, and my vote, even though it's still sharing my voice, it doesn't seem to do much if they're just going to continue to fund it. So I just feel hopeless. That's the biggest feeling. I just can't keep seeing these images and not doing anything about it.
I think we got
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
okay,
you.
perfect. All right, Fran.
Wait, can you sit back down for 1 second? I just need some cutaways. You guys can keep talking.
Okay. Do you want me to ask questions?
Sure.
Or is this- Okay, all right. So tell me a little bit about what it was like when you had to do voter registration and phone banking when you'd never done that before.
Yeah, I was really nervous at first, but they gave me a script and everything, and it was a lot of fun. I just followed the script. I got to talk to a lot of people who I wouldn't normally talk to, and I helped them register. Some of them spoke Urdu, and it was really fun to have that conversation in Urdu, and they were just really unfamiliar with the process, and that made me sad that no one had taught them before, because I could see my grandparents in them, I could see everyone in them, so it was just a lot of fun and new experience, and I gained confidence from it.
Yeah. And then also, when you talk to Lazala, she has a lot of experience politically. So you can also ask her about ways that she's been involved. Because she's been a leader in this community for like
No, I know.
20. You can ask her.
Oh, I should.
You can ask her.
Yeah.
Like, are you gonna vote uncommitted? Should I vote uncommitted?
Perfect. Okay.
Tell me about what's going on with this election for you.
For me, it's it's just nerve-wracking because it's not just a normal ordinary election. I think it's a year of elections, and what I mean by that is just like this is an election that is really going to change like the next 4 years a lot in terms of like where is this country headed, because right now I feel America is going through an identity crisis. It has been for the past decade, I think, for sure. And if we look at like the country 10 years ago, it was a very different place. And like especially growing up as a teen, I think since 2017, I'd like to say, is a lot of it has really just been a big makeover in terms of our identity. So it's very nerve-wracking for me.
And do you already know who you're going to vote for? How does that process for you?
For me, I don't know yet. My thing
Do you
is,
mind saying that like as a whole sentence, like I don't know yet who I'm going to vote for, like that?
yeah, I was about to. Yeah,
Oh,
I got
sorry.
you. You're good. For me, I'm really just, I don't know yet because I still kind of just want to weigh who I would want to vote for, because my thing is just like, I'm personally don't know if I like what's been happening recently in the current administration, but then I also don't know if I really want what was happening in the prior administration, and I kind of just want to see what new voices I could get, because I kind of do not like the fact that it's a rematch, between two predecessors. I wish it was kind of something like a new voice, someone new.
Do you feel like these candidates represent what your generation cares about?
I feel probably not. I feel a lot of it represents a lot of the older generation, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but I definitely do think that like for the past few years, it has been kind of out of date with like the young population in this country, and I think that needs to change. I think we need more active representation of younger voices.
And how do you feel about the responsibility of not just you voting, but like helping others, registering, talking to others? Have you thought about what you're going to do in that way?
See, I think it is my responsibility to, talk to my friends and talk to, people within my community, outside of my community about like, hey, have you decided who you want to vote for? What are your steps? And making sure that at least people vote, because I don't care who anyone votes for. I only care about making sure that other people are voting, because that is probably the biggest flaw in a democracy if people aren't going to turn out to vote.
Have you gotten any pushback? What have you heard so far from your friends?
I mean, in terms of pushback, I would say, there's a lot of people who are like, nothing's going to change is something that a lot of people say, and they're like, I don't feel like voting because of that. And that's like something I disagree with, and I tell them, it does matter. It really does matter who is in office for the next 4 years and who is elected, whether that be presidency, Senate, reps. It's like, it really does matter. And so I've been talking to friends and just people within the community about like, your vote does matter.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let me just get a couple cutaways. You guys can talk for a second.
All right. Rayon, tell me a little bit about what you might want to do in the future.
As a career?
Yeah.
So, see, I would like to pursue medicine, but I would also want to, down the line, do public office, do something of sorts, whether it's local as like a council member, mayor, or even to the state, being a state senator, state rep, and, one day senator. That'd be really nice. My thing is that no matter what I do in the future, I want to stay involved, and I want to make a difference in my community and be a leader for my community.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Allah. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله الله أكبر. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
We're all in class, the full movement.
Excuse me. You don't mind me asking, what are you guys recording or?
yourself, and then where you come from when we're talking about what's going on.
So I'm a senior at Ladue High School, and why I'm interested in the upcoming election is because I did some phone banking last year, and that got me involved in the whole election process, getting registered. And now my goal is just to encourage my friends to get registered, even amidst all this uncertainty that is this upcoming election. Because what I've been hearing is that it doesn't seem like there's a right answer to this problem between these two candidates. So what I'm just trying to get the message out is that everyone should register regardless of what they think.
So, whom did you do the phone banking last year for?
I did it with this Asian American organization
Okay.
for high schoolers that we just would call unregistered Asian American voters and help them register.
Okay, right,
Yeah.
okay, fine. I don't know. Just tell me briefly about yourself, and then where would you stand? Or
Hi, my name is Round Khan. I'm a senior at Market High School. I, from day one, have always had a passion for politics. I mean, it's just something that, like, not just politics, but also just the role of government in our lives, in our society. Because even from, like, going to public school, you know, that all the things that are for us, you know, lunches, the academics, you know, all those regulations that they have in place, you know, it directly impacts us on a day-to-day basis, all those taxes. And so I really just always was interested in politics, always wanted to get involved in politics. I've had the privilege of doing things, especially with, like, I have a passion for healthcare, and so I got to do just basically shadowing and doing a lot of stuff where I got to demonstrate ankle taping in front of the current governor of Missouri, Mike Parsons, and the Secretary of Education, and doing, like, different things like that. So voting is a new thing for me because, you know, I just recently got registered in October when I turned 18, and, you know, I'm just looking forward to it, even though this is very much a nerve-wracking election for me personally and for many of other Americans. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
so, are your families involved that much in politics,
My
or you?
mom is particularly, yeah, she's always encouraged me to vote. She was so happy when I registered. She was like cheering and stuff. So yeah, my family's always been involved in the process. My mom did some canvassing, I think last year for one of the candidates, so it's always been a thing in my family. So it feels like a rite of passage to register to vote, and there's always been so much excitement about getting to vote for the first time.
Okay. So, do you have internally at home difference between opinion politically, or?
Not really. I think me and my mother are very much in unison in what we believe in, what we want to see, you know, in our society. So, and a lot of it's not really about partisanship or about anything. It's always on the candidate about what do they stand for, what are their ideals, and what do they do for, like, you know, the constituents that they serve. It's very much, we're very much in unison in, like, ideas and values.
So, what made you excited that you were able to vote? What do you think you can do with your vote?
Just like the fact that, you know, it's such an integral part of our democracy, you know, being able to vote. I mean, it's something that the one good thing about democracy is that everyone has a voice. And so just being able to give that one vote this upcoming election cycle is just, in a way for me, it's just, you know, it's a start of, like, a lot of, like, different elections and a lot of, you know, just getting involved more with my community.
So, are you involved in, like, for lack of term, politics in your school? You run for any office there?
Yeah, I try to stay out of at school particularly because where I go to school, this election has been really heated at my school. There's two different sides very clearly. So I try not to insert myself at school because I don't want to get involved with any teachers or friends who might be upset. But when I get home, of course, I'm gonna, you know, my social media and everything. That's how I express. Not necessarily at school, but I use my, like, you know, Instagram, reposting everything, getting my voice out through that. So I'd say it's more of an at-home thing. Just the way that this election is panned out, it's so, like, controversial. You don't want to upset anyone. So I try to keep it away from school.
So both of you mentioned this, like, and that's like a national type of feeling that it's a very
Becoming, like, getting this melting pot, like, bursting out from the pot, because we're just seeing all these different views and all these different, like, viewpoints coming in that are just, they conflict, and it's becoming a little bit of an issue. We do see, like, violence coming out of it from people, and it's just, you know, it's not something that we would desire, and that is why this next upcoming election really needs to, like, be like a solution to, like, what is going to happen. And whether that would be a solution, we don't know, and that's why it makes it such.
Identity, but you're part of something bigger.
exactly. You don't have to give up yourself, but I always say that from us perspective, so your parents, myself, we came, and then you have the best of both worlds, you know.
Mm-hmm.
and we have east or west, and that is also actually combining when we get into politics, because most of the people who moved from South Asia, other parts of the world, they had a different type of political atmosphere, right? Oh, okay. They always think, and people still treat it that way. They think that we are probably everything is rigged, or there's something can't trust it. But eventually, you start doing it, you start feeling it. So, from your perspective, what are the issues during this election that you think are the most important, or you say these are the issues for me, at least for next few years? That's what they're most important.
The most important issue to me right now is what's going on in the Middle East. I'm looking at how each candidate has reacted to what's going on and what their policies are going forward. I think no matter what's going on, immigration, that seems to be an ongoing problem. I think the pressing problem right now is just the war in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. We can't just keep putting a Band-Aid on it as the politicians have. I think one of the candidates needs to step up and finally come up with a solution, a ceasefire to stop what's going on, the war, all the loss of life, because even though we're so separated from it, it's going to continue to affect us, our hearts, our economics, and just the way we function. We can't just continue to be America separately when something so terrible is happening in the world. So that's the most pressing issue on my mind.
So it's just a Middle East conflict, or would it be, let's say if there's a conflict in any other country, would that affect you the same way?
True. I definitely think the world conflicts, last year it was Ukraine, this year it's Israel-Palestine, next year it could be something else. I think America's role in being like the problem solver and the country that kind of makes amends and makes everything perfect, we've kind of had this image for many years of we are the problem solvers, we make the solutions, and I just haven't seen that this year. I've seen us only put more money into this problem that's not being solved. And so I really want to see which candidate is going to step up and have a solution for that.
But I would also say that it's not just like Ukraine is just left in the past. It's still a recurring theme. It's like it's just mounting on each other, and that's exactly like what Zara said. Like it's becoming an issue because are we really mediating it and like helping it come to a close, or are we just helping it keep on going by just throwing money at the problem? Like are we putting a Band-Aid on it? That's what it seems like.
You're talking about Ukraine, or you're talking about Middle East?
Talking about it mounting up on each other, all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the president back then wanted that to come into fruition because the UN was supposed to be that forum to help these things come into play. But now we see that the UN has only really just been something that is, it doesn't have actual like oversight over these governments. Like whatever is the UN says, it's not actually law. But what we do see is that the United States has the power to kind of do whatever it wants. And, the way I see it is the United States needs to play a role in helping peace happen, not in advancing one side over the other, regardless of what side that is. I really think it needs to be equal, and I feel like forums like the United Nations should be taken more into just the decision table on what is being happening.
I think I agree with you with the UN. I've just seen the UN completely, utterly fail with the Palestine-Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've lost faith, and kind of to go off of what you said, I think the US should play a role because we've always played that role. We kind of take pride in being the ones who, step up and help these countries. The formation of Israel itself, we were the ones who created Israel, and we were the ones who kind of almost created the conflict that it is today. We kind of laid the foundation, a really shaky foundation, to be where we are. So that's why I think if we're gonna meddle in that part, we have to find a solution when things go awry. Like we have to be the ones to also help. I don't know how, but I just know we need to do it somehow.
I think,
Can you guys talk a little bit about how you think this conflict and what's happening in Gaza might affect this election and what you're hearing from your peers and what you think might happen? Zara, can you start talking?
Oh yeah, totally. So what I've heard from my peers about this issue is that they don't feel like either candidate is addressing the problem the right way. They feel like my vote does not count. I'm just not going to even vote because if this candidate is not supporting my viewpoint, the other one isn't supporting my viewpoint, what should I do? And so I've had to really convince my friends that no matter what you think about either candidate, you have to vote. At the end of the day, you have to vote because the second you give up your vote is when you're just giving up hope for what's going on in the Middle East. So I think there's a lot of hopelessness right now, and we got to figure out a way to quell that hopelessness and get people behind one of the candidates.
So what will you be thinking about when you behind one of the candidate, even if you think that they both are doing which is not what you want? Mm-hmm. It's like, for lack of term, lesser of the two evils?
Exactly. It is lesser of the two evils. It's between Biden and Trump, who it seems like are going to be the two candidates, I think Biden he cares more about the civilian casualties versus Trump has sort of brushed those aside. So it's okay. Well, one of them at least cares about civilians. That's the one I'm going to go with. That's the way I'm leaning with this election. The way I've heard from either candidate, and I have to look more into their policies about how exactly they intend to like lay out this conflict, how to solve it. But I'm leaning towards Biden only because he seems to care about the civilians who are dying and who shouldn't be dying.
And how about you?
I mean, for me, like, I think it's also important to know like what's going on at home, and we're seeing that since October 15th, there's just been a spike in Islamophobic attacks, and not only Islamophobic but anti-Semitic attacks, and it's like important to acknowledge that like even at home like issues are arising, and we're not really adequately solving these things because so many Muslim Americans are being affected by this, Jewish Americans are being affected by this, and really what many people want is peace on both sides of the aisle, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, a Jewish or a Christian or a Muslim. It's just something which I think what really needs to be seen with this election is just like, how do we address these things? Because Islamophobia, you can find an article about it in 2017. And since post 9/11, we always see Islamophobia being like a common term used, and just seeing it a lot on the media, and it's disheartening. And so I think one main thing is also like seeing what the issues are at home and like making sure that those are also being adequately addressed.
So, not of the president. Lots of our policies are shaped by many other people. So how are you choosing other first let's talk about the president and then about the other choices.
Because me personally, I feel at the end of the day, it's not always just the president. I feel it's very much the Senate and the House of Reps, because at the end of the day, they're the lawmakers. And the legislation that is being made is really what's impacting our daily lives. And sometimes I feel as if the policies that are coming in. So I think it's very important to realize that what do we want from like our senators, our representatives across the nation. And that's something that everyone across the nation needs to, take into consideration. Who do you want making our laws? And so that is just my 2 cents on that. I think that we really had to take into account that it's not just the president. It's not just that one guy you see on TV. It's also those.
What do you think is that's you're saying partisanship, all this stuff? Where is it taking over the country? Do you think this will go away after the election? Are we going to get together, or we'll find something common? This third party idea
As the media portrays it to be. Because we also, I believe it was 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to talk to Representative Cori Bush. And my dying question I wanted to ask her is, how do you work with the other side? Because on the media, it seems like you guys are just, bawling out at each other. And you know what she said? She said, no, I mean, actually, I have a lot of friends across the aisle, and we work together a lot on legislation. And a lot of it is really just hype from the media. And I think that's something really important, especially with us having this platform to talk about this, to understand that it's not as polarized as it may seem. You see, we live in a state like Missouri, and you would think it's all basically just one-sided, and that there's not that much, I guess.
another point of view.
Yeah, right. But you do see like a lot of people who are understanding, people, whether it be people from like Mexico, Missouri, or people in urban St. Louis. You can see a lot of people getting together and compromising and understanding where the other person is coming from. And I think that's important to realize that the media kind of paints our government as very divisive, when I really do believe that there is still hope, and that isn't as divisive as the media portrays it to be. So then on the topic of the election, I do believe though that the two figureheads may be portrayed as very divisive, but I do think that in the end the country should be able to work it out. I just do think that like when it comes to the situation in Gaza, I think that the situation in Ukraine, those issues are very polarizing, and there are things that like need to be done. And as for the solution of that, besides us going out there to vote, I couldn't pitch anything to you. But what I can say is that it isn't as polarized as it is.
I agree with you too. When we think back to 2016 election when Donald Trump won, to me it seemed like the end of the world. Like Donald Trump has just won. He was a polarizing figure back then. It seems like all of our policies were just anti-immigration. The Muslim ban. To me, it seemed like that was the end of the world, right? But we got over that. Biden came in and there was a complete shift. So I think you're right. Even though it seems very polarized right now, in a flip of an election cycle, everything could change. So maybe you're right. It's not as crazy as we think it is.
So, as a physician, and maybe Chair. I thought our country failed miserably in COVID. We are the best country in the world. Supposedly, we have the best medicine, we have the best everything, healthcare. We have the worst record. Okay, so I think when we're choosing leaders, we have to think so many times that what are their track record or what they could do that. So unifying is a great thing. That we can bring people together. What do you think what we can do at the grassroots level to unite? How would you go across the aisle and talk to your friends?
See, what I do like, and if we're talking about grassroots, what I do like to see is, you know, a lot of like politicians when they run, they go door to door, knock on doors, and they talk to people, constituents about their policies and what they will do for those people. Stuff like that, you know, going door to door, asking people what do they want to see in the White House and Congress, what do they want to see. I think that's the most important thing, because you know, you could be on social media and think that social media is reaching the masses, but it really isn't. For the population of the United States, the amount of Americans that are on social media does not catch up to that.
It's the younger
Right,
generation.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that also goes back to like the prior topic about the media being divisive, right? If you're always on your phone, if you're always on the news, you're gonna think this country is, you know,
Going down the hill.
right. You could be someone living on a ranch in Kentucky, and you could think this is the most beautiful, greatest country, no problems whatsoever, right? It's about perception and about your perspective. And I think that the most important thing to realize is that
That's making a very clear message, and that's standing up for yourself, and it's almost like a protest in a way, a peaceful protest that, hey, I'm not cool with what's going on. We need to figure out something that's going to fix this.
So are you going to, coming this Sunday, you're going to go on vote uncommitted?
I hope to do that. Yeah, I was talking with my mom about this. I'm just unsure about that whole process. Even the primary, like this is my first time voting, first election. Like I didn't even know that the primary was this weekend. That's how like
Early, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's correct. How about you?
Yeah, and so for me, like, I didn't know too much about the uncommitted thing until I saw the news headlines in Michigan about how a lot of people, especially the Democratic nomination, like, it was really very much a problem for Biden, because a lot of people in Michigan were not happy with his handling of the situation in Gaza. And, you know, I think that's good, because the thing is they're making their voices heard. That impacts that president. He knows that they're not happy with what's going on and his situation, his way of handling that situation. So, me personally, like, I don't know if I am gonna go on committee, because I just learned about it, I think, like 3 days ago.
Well, you can still go.
Right, and I also didn't even know about this weekend it being about, right? And I think that's also one issue though, that accessibility. Like, I don't think a lot of kids my age even know that this is happening this weekend. And I think that's one thing that really needs to improve, that like people, like, when it goes back to grassroots, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Right, I think that's the most important thing, that people actually know that this is happening, because you know who's actually
continues to send money to fund the military operations that are happening that target the civilians, target the women, then I think the problem is it won't change my vote, because I think Trump is infinitely worse than Biden. He will just continue the military operations as well. That's why I feel sort of hopeless, because I'm stuck with Biden no matter what he does. Even if he makes a wrong decision, he's always going to be better than Trump. That's why I just feel hopeless in that way, that I'm stuck on this bandwagon no matter where it goes, because I know the other one is already in a ditch. So it's a little tough.
So I think one thing I always talk with younger people and other people, it's not one person does. I know when President Obama came, and they say, oh, why is he doing this to Muslim countries? So his father was Muslim and all those things. These are the policies, right? President is not sitting there, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do that. We have the policies, we have, the State Department, or they sit and they make policies. I think that's where we have to go and change it.
So focus on the policies, not the person.
That is correct. Yeah, I mean, policies are basically, you can change, I'm telling people exactly what you say. We are not going to vote for Biden. I say, well, then Trump is going to come.
Yeah.
Well, he will be better. He won't do worse than us. The thing is, it's the American policy. That's what you need to look into that.
And again, right, like I said earlier, the thing is you can vote for Biden, and if it's controlled by the other party, then nothing's going to get done. And that's a detriment for both sides of the aisle, right? Because
even if it's not his party, we have this, you have this, every government, even a third party person coming there, they're going to do the same thing. There might be some variation. So as a minority, what are you thinking from both governments? What you would like, or let's forget even more, what are the other issues besides Middle East? that is,
I
which
guess
are on your list?
Going
that-
off like your first question though, I think that you got to realize that is not.
And supersede my own body, like my own choice. So I think regardless of what happens this election, I want to make my voice continue to be heard by canvassing and like getting on social media to continue to advocate for abortion rights in Missouri. I think sometimes it's easy to lose focus when all this election stuff is happening, but I gotta stay focused on continuing my efforts. My efforts are gonna last, 10 years, 15 years. I'm gonna keep advocating for women's rights, keep advocating for abortion, because that's something that our country has decided when they reversed Roe v. Wade, that it's important, right? And they reversed our right and our ability to get that abortion. So I'm going to continue to fight no matter what happens, and I hope that other young people are on the same boat as me. No matter what happens, we're going to continue to fight, and it's not about which candidate supports us, because we're always going to be doing this. We're always going to be advocating.
So, the thing is the government may not be the right one to handle that situation. But I think that's where it comes in for us, that we elect the right people and the right leaders so that so that the corporations have free will and they can do whatever. But as you can see right now in the United States, I mean, insurance companies are, they're doing as whatever they want and as they please. And we're just seeing that it really seems like the corporations can't be trusted. Do you get what I mean? Like, I don't think it necessarily should be that the government runs everything, but it definitely should be when there's a glaring issue and that there needs to be reform.
And you mentioned the candidates piece of it. I wish the media would focus more on those issues. Like, we hear so much about religion. Like, it seems like the media glosses over these important things.
Right.
Maybe a day they'll spend on it.
I would like to say, like, going off that, like the wall. All I'm gonna believe is that, okay, this guy's only believes in the wall. I also still want to see like a transparent look at their policies because, like we talked about earlier, these parties aren't too much different. They mostly rely, and even the border law has honestly even more active in terms of like enforcement and immigration control.
So do you go and read? I mean, that's what I talked to Transgression. He was running for president in India, and we were just, oh great, he's coming to speak. None of us knew about that. Okay? And then it got his attention. He said, I'm sorry, I did not know that. I'm going to go and look at it and take it off or something like that. Okay? So I think that's what I said, we are all paying attention to this. Biden and decide who you're going to vote.
Absolutely. I think our generation has picked that up again because we have social media. That's what every single day we have been attention. Social media is taking the place of the media, I think. So yeah, I'm aware about the school board election.
2017, the issue was social media, Facebook. I do think that was one of the main issues because there's so much misinformation around Hillary Clinton. Things about, I remember there was something about Pizzagate that Hamas is this, Hamas is that, this is Hamas, and right? It's those key words, those key things. The algorithms know how to do that, and the things these social media companies will.
Wars come from reading like CNN, reading Al Jazeera. But even then, like one of the biggest things I've noticed the past, year or so is that never before in my life have I thought that the media was actually.
Opinion articles too. You search up the conflict, and the first thing I'll see is like the Washington Journal opinion. Hamas is this, Hamas is that. It's almost as if look at the numbers. Right.
I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing
Right.
that. You go on the media right now.
Even if it hurts, go to the other social media side. Even if you have to fight, you to say, no, I want to say what they're saying. Because it is possible that we have some also incorrect information. Still read Wall Street, still read New York Times, still watch or what commentators watch some of Fox News. And it's fine. Media has its own, they have like what they want to do. And they go this point of view and that point of view. But you're right. I mean, when we did not have these cable news, we used to get news at 5:30. Those were objective news because they knew they might be fast information, right? Which is being bombarded. You have to learn how to take it out. So let's say, your favorite president.
The one thing is that I really like my favorite history is history in general because the history of all these leaders. We're not as many Muslims, right? And so what I do see is that it's the same issue, the same I would say that there's a lot of the discrimination that was for one sect or one religion or one device in history is so these presidents, I really feel like they're just I really think that history repeats itself. I don't see much difference coming out of Trump being in office or Biden. I think it's again the policy initiatives that I would just kind of, for me, just be like, okay, well, he's now hit his term limits, probably going to go for the other party. Because I think at the end of the day,
versus party. I don't think I fully understood that before. And that gives you hope, right? Because you have to know that these fundamental policies that America is built on, they're gonna stay, right? But it's choosing like the party that is the path of least resistance almost, and you have to come in with that understanding that these policies are gonna stay, right? But how can we add on to them or do things that make it more easy? And with all these politics, you gotta look forward, and I think that's something that has really clicked in my mind, and I'm not necessarily going to focus so much on what they've done in the past maybe, but how we can move forward as America, united America, and come to some solution what's going on in the Middle East, but also in our own country with all this, the fighting between parties and stuff, and come to some consensus between these policies, so.
How about you? Your question or something became more clear, or it became a little bit more, you have more questions now?
I think honestly, yeah, a bit clearer because I really do see, like from your example, growing up in the Bush era, right? You saw a lot of those issues, and we saw like how a lot of Muslim Americans or South Asians in particular voted more for the Republicans. But then we saw in the aftermath of that war that demographic shift changed towards the Democrats. It has really helped me realize that you look at those, you follow those demographics, you see a lot of why people of my background will vote for this candidate and why. It just really helps me understand the thinking patterns behind these different groups of people that are voting.
So did any one of you ever think about running yourself for an office? Okay, good. How about you?
I've been a little scared to do this because I know once you put yourself out in the public eye, you're open to a world of,
Sarah, talk to me about what you feel like has changed either in your thinking or what you're gonna do.
I feel a lot more confident having talked with like Rayan, who's a similar age person, has the same feelings about the election. I feel more confident, and I feel like my feelings are validated now. At some points I felt kind of guilty of not wanting to vote for either candidate, but now I feel like my thoughts and my perspective is validated, having worked out our problems, the things going on in the Middle East. The way I feel it's how a lot of people feel clearly, and so I think I take that now, knowing that my voice is just one of many, and so I should feel like confident in expressing that because I know that I'm not the only one now.
That's great. Can you, in a sentence, say your name? Like I am, and this is my first election, something like that. But just like your name in a sentence and why you're here.
Yeah, like your name, how old you are. Yeah.
I'm Zara Khan. I'm 18. This is my first time voting in an election. I'm very excited, and I'm excited to voice my opinion on what's going on and the way I feel, share my perspective.
Can you say that one more time and just say your name and this is my I'm 18. This is my first time voting election. Period.
Okay. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Zara Khan. I'm 18 years old, and this is my first time voting in an election.
And the biggest concern that I have this year is?
The biggest concern I have this year is how candidates respond to the conflict in the Middle East. I want to know that the candidate I vote for is doing the right thing in my mind.
Okay, I think that's great.
Good, yeah.
And then before you go, I want to do just like one. Good job.
I'm sorry, I was blinking a little bit.
Okay. Rayan, tell me a little bit about how this conversation has changed your either thinking or what you might do.
I mean, for me, it definitely just gave me that like understanding that my voice really matters this upcoming election, and I really do need to take things seriously in terms of like participating, right? Going out there this weekend or going out there in November and, talking to people within my community that, we need to vote.
So, do you want to, can you say in like a sentence that like you didn't know about the primary, but now you do and you're going to vote in the primary if you think you are?
Yeah, so I think that, not knowing that the primary was going to happen, I think now that I will, because I think it's just very important in that I go out there and use my voice and keep up to date.
Okay, and then will you say who you are, your name, your age? This is your first time voting in a sentence.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Rayan Khan. I'm 18 years old, and this is going to be my first time voting.
And what were the reasons, like why you're here? Like what are the
Your
big
top
things?
concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And say in a sentence.
Yeah. my top concern in this election is, or what I really care most about.
My top concerns is honestly Islamophobia, understanding where our country is going to be in the next 4 years, and just seeing the next generation how we are going to take over.
But
I
try
did
that
one
You
again.
do that
terrible.
one more
That didn't
time.
I did
really
like
make
that
sense.
last line.
Yeah. Okay. So just you can just narrow
It's
it down
okay.
to one, like the thing that I'm thinking about or worried about the most right now is like.
I'll say one of my main things is seeing how our democracy is going to unfold in the next 4 years. Can I say it like that? Say
Yeah.
something like
You
that.
can say
One of
that.
my biggest concerns is how democracy will.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your
But
mouth.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
sometimes
can say
that's
it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how in the next 4 years.
Why don't you say my biggest concern and just like in as few words as possible. Okay.
My biggest concern is to seeing how our democracy will unfold in the next 4 years with this election coming up.
perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
okay.
And then I want to get the shot
Yeah.
of you. It's kind of weird. Sorry, it won't be like a volume thing. Perfect. Okay.
Baking with them, Dr.
Yeah.
Min Wu. She's
Yeah.
awesome. I love her.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because of the Civic Scholars group, we did the May Book Project.
Right, I heard about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you ever want to, can I? It's a lot of video.
Oscar. Let's see. Because then we don't have to use as much of the. Oh, if I have more of her at that going to the vote, for the very first time.
I'm really worried about that sound now. Dang it. time Saturday?
I just messaged her.
Because we could, depending on what time she goes Saturday,
Yeah.
I have to see if the sound is screwed up,
Okay.
but it's not a big deal. Either way, Michelle, it's not.
That's what she did her thing through. Okay. So it's only from 8 to noon is the voting.
Okay.
And it's here, oh, it's right here on Weekend is where it is. That's where yeah. So they get up early to eat, like people who are fasting at like 5:30 a.m. And then they usually crash and then wake up a little later. I have a feeling she'll probably go around.
I'm a little freaked out. It'll be fine.